Laura Rudberg, MassBio's Director of Events. Thank you for joining us today. We are changing up our Friday morning format. This is a fireside chat with Bob Coughlin, MassBio's President and CEO, Chris Leibman, MassBio Board Member and Biogen Senior Vice President of Value and Access, and moderator Stephanie Dyson, Biogen Vice President of Public Policy and Government Affairs, who will be our moderator. We'll learn about how Biogen is leading through the COVID-19 crisis. Chris will share insights around how Biogen is supporting employees, the community, and contributions to science, while also working to continue business operations and ensure patients get access to the therapies they need, and that critical trials and regulatory filings are ongoing. Bob and Chris will also discuss what the industry can learn regarding pandemic response. We reserved a few minutes at the end for Q&A, so please use that Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. Go ahead and put those questions in as we're talking. No need to wait till the end, and you can upvote questions. So if you see a question that is the one you want to ask, just upvote it, and that'll be at the top of the list. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Stephanie. Stephanie, you can go ahead.
Great. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining. I'm just going to get right into the questions, and I think I'll start with a question that's likely on the top of everyone's mind. So, Chris, we know that Biogen had unique challenges and that we were differentially impacted by COVID-19. Can you give us a bit of insight about that period of time, what it was like? And actually, what have you found and what did Biogen learn when we had employees and colleagues who were falling ill at the meeting?
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie, and good morning to everyone, and to Bob and you, Stephanie. It's a real privilege. Thanks for this opportunity, Bob and MassBio, for bringing together this group. A real honor and privilege, and looking forward to this discussion. So, Stephanie, yeah, thanks. We had some unique challenges, like every company has had, and we moved quickly, moved very quickly. It's hard to remember now what people were thinking about months ago and how much has changed in the world over that period of time. But we moved quickly. We notified the Massachusetts Department of Public Health and quickly took steps to protect our employees, their families, and of course, the broader community. We were one of the first companies, actually, in fact, to implement actions that for everyone now is fairly commonplace, such as quarantines, strict travel bans, and of course, transitioning to work our entire employee base from home, among other things. And so we moved quickly. We tried to use the information and limited information that we had at that time to make the best decisions to ensure the safety and well-being of our employees and the broader community.
Great. And speaking of the community, Biogen is well known for the support that we provide in the community. Can you give us a bit more insight about that? And then Bob, tell us a bit about MassBio and what you guys have done as well.
Yeah, so maybe I start again with the employee piece.
Chris, do you want to go first?
That was and continues to be. Yeah, maybe I'll just kind of follow on a few of my points, Bob, first, which is, first, as I discussed, employees were at the central component of our priority. And again, as we said, as we transitioned, we were one of the first companies to transition to people working in the home setting. And as we all know now, that creates an entire new and unique set of circumstances and challenges that we all have to work through. And so as part of that, Biogen immediately put together a $15 million emergency relief fund specifically to support our employees. Locally, we also set up COVID-19 testing for our employees, which is a new priority, obviously, for all of society. At our Weston facility in Massachusetts, we set up a COVID-19 testing facility for our employees. For the community, the Biogen Foundation has committed $10 million to help expand testing options, to provide training for frontline health workers, to ease the strain on medical systems, and also specific necessities like food. So that's meant locally organizations, Bob, organizations you would know very, very well, such as the Greater Boston Food Bank, Life Science Cares, Boston Healthcare for the Homeless, and locally here in Cambridge, where our headquarters is, Cambridge Mayor's Disaster Relief Fund.
Yeah, no, and if I could add to that, first and
Great. And
foremost, going
Bob?
back to how Biogen actually was responding. Okay, yeah. Can you hear me okay? So for me,
Yes.
going
Yep.
back to, yeah, okay, great. Going back to your original answer, Chris, I mean, I think it's important for people to realize that, some of the inquiries that were coming in from hospitals in the area, as well as our interaction with government, was all the way back to early February. People, we've been dealing for this, we're 9 weeks into when people actually shut down, but, we're about 12, 13, 14 weeks really into this. And I think science is showing now that there could have been a lot of people infected back in January and February with this. So this is something that was around for a lot longer than we originally thought. That being said, thank you so much for everything that Biogen has done. I mean, the philanthropic work that has come from your company to help support so many of the endeavors that have been important as we face a medical surge. When you look at what MassBio has done, it's our job to make sure that industry, academia, and government truly work together. And we showed that immediately through developing the Massachusetts Life Sciences Emergency Supply Hub. And the Supply Hub, working with companies like yours and so many other, I'm happy to say that close to 500 companies have donated, whether it's supplies, their supply chain, their PPE, or their expertise through personnel, have really, really donated so much to help the Commonwealth of Massachusetts get through this medical surge. And companies like yours have done extraordinary work in supporting so many different entities. It's really, really important. And I think that's one of the things that makes Massachusetts and our biotech life sciences cluster, so impressive and so important, is stepping up during a time like this.
Yeah, Bob.
Great.
And
Thanks,
maybe
Bob.
if I would,
That
since
certainly resonates
I've
with
been
me. I
very
mean, as a
close.
registered nurse.
So I know we're talking over briefly on each other, but Bob, since I've had the opportunity to have a front row seat to some of MassBio's leadership and response, I don't know if you want to say a quick word on the Cambridge Health Alliance, because that's been one area I know has gotten a lot of attention and clearly has had a tremendous impact on the community.
Yeah, I think something that we've all learned as an industry is that, there's some things out there that we don't know. One of the things that I've learned a great deal about during this pandemic and this crisis is the important work of an organization that's right in our backyard here in Kendall Square. The Cambridge Health Alliance is one of many safety net hospitals that's so important to our neighbors right here. I mean, not everybody can go to these big academic medical centers. And when you look at, our neighbors here in Cambridge and folks who require that safety net healthcare, that happens at places like Cambridge Health Alliance. It's so wonderful to see your company and several others step up in working with the CHA to ensure that they have the adequate funding and resources to take care of a vulnerable population right here in our backyard.
Absolutely. And thanks, Chris, for that additional question. I think that gave us great insight. I was going to say that as a registered nurse, it's interesting, this is Nurses Week, so it's very easy for people to understand sort of the first line healthcare workers and the first line essential workers and what they bring to this COVID situation. Another part of my life, like most of us in the biopharm industry, very excited about the science and the unique position that Biogen and other companies have the ability to bring. So, Chris, can you just give us a sense of the different unique aspects that Biogen has brought to play with respect to our science and just even though we're not an infectious disease company, how have we participated in the science aspect of COVID-19?
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. Yeah, so clearly at Biogen, we're a neuroscience company. We're trying to focus on, tremendous high unmet need areas in Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, ALS, a host of others. And, we're not an infectious disease company. We're focused on the brain. However, we also, like all the companies in the area, want to help in this fight against COVID. And, how can we do that? So two stand out for me. One is an initiative and a collaboration that we're pursuing with Vir Technologies to help develop antibodies with the hope that that could lead to treatments for COVID. And that's important. While we're not an infectious disease company, as a company with over, the longest standing biotech company of over 40 years, we have a tremendous manufacturing capability. So if we can bring that expertise here to support the scale up required, we'd love to play a role. The second was, we've announced a collaboration recently with the Broad Institute here in MIT and Harvard, as well as Partners Healthcare, to form a COVID-19 biobank. And this is going to include blood samples and other data from our employees and their close contacts who wish to volunteer to help researchers advance knowledge and search for potential vaccines and treatments. This could serve as a very valuable role, which I know a number of us have done and will continue to do.
Awesome. I want to shift the conversation a bit to how we're operating in this environment. So it's interesting, in leading the government affairs team, I think many people have anticipated a decrease in activity versus a lot of individuals and members of Congress beginning to shift the way they do business. And we've really been following the lead of some of our trade associations like MassBio. So Bob, I'll start with you. Like, how has MassBio shifted during this time? What does your typical day look like today? And have you found new innovative ways to sort of get your work done in this environment?
Hey, Stephanie, thank you for that question, because I'll tell you, the world has changed quite a bit. And I might say, even though it's in a difficult, challenging times, and unfortunately we're facing a pandemic, but a lot of the things that have been happening have made us more efficient. And I'll get into that. At MassBio, we've had to continue to provide services to our member companies, but we've had to rely on the virtual nature. And granted, some of this virtual presence has challenging. Right now, it seems like we're having some bandwidth issues a little bit, and our conversation can be a little spotty, but I ask everyone to be patient. I think it's because so many people are actually logged on to this event, and that's a good thing. So hopefully you can hear me okay. But that being said, the virtual nature of what we're doing and how we are sharing information with our community, I think it's become more efficient. I'm not spending as much time flying back and forth to Washington, D.C. or driving back and forth in the congested Massachusetts traffic just to get, half a mile to the State House could take an hour. It's quicker to crawl sometimes than drive. But now, if you look at the regular amount of communication that is happening with, one, the administration, our industry is in constant communication with the command center, with Secretary Sutters, with the governor, with the lieutenant governor, with all of the cabinet members, talking about how it is that we can solve this problem. We are doing the same with leadership in the House and the Senate, as well as rank and file membership. We've held briefings for both the House and the Senate where all of the members can participate. And the amount of phone conversations and Zoom conversations that I've been having with so many members has been more than ever. And I think what excites me the most about it is we've always been advocates to emphasize the value that our industry brings to patients during what I would say traditional normal times. Right now, everybody in the government sphere, I think everybody in our society realizes that science is the only thing that's going to get us out of this. And all of the things that government has done to partner with us over the past 15 years to make Massachusetts the best place in the world for this industry is paying off today. It's paying off today. Science is the only thing that's going to get us through this, and we are the industry that's doing that. And to have our governmental officials realize that, acknowledge that, and understand that is truly, truly amazing. So I think some good's coming of this. The amount of communication with government is at an all-time high. And as you know, policy isn't the only thing that we do at MassBio, but it's a very important part of what we do. And Stephanie, I'm sure that you and your team and Chris, as a board member at MassBio, I'm sure you're pretty happy with that level of communication picking up.
Absolutely. Chris, just a bit about you and your role. How has your team had to sort of morph or change or be innovative in this environment?
Yeah, thanks. And Bob, I have to say, having been in the room with you so many times with policymakers and with others, and your enthusiasm is infectious, I have to say, this technology doesn't inhibit it. Your infectious nature comes through even in this medium. So I think it's proof that this can work. So Stephanie, to the question, yeah, I mean, clearly we have treatments for multiple sclerosis patients, spinal muscular atrophy patients. And first and foremost, here in the US, as well as around the world, we wanted to be sure during this situation, during these unique circumstances, patients can find a way to gain treatments. These are very difficult diseases, and they're not diseases we can just pause. We need to ensure that they continue to receive this. So it was making sure that if there's things we can do to support how patients will actually access and receive their medications and treatments, or secondly, making sure we have continuity of supply, which we've been very proud that we've been able to maintain and continue. The other piece is these areas we're working in, from a research and development standpoint, they don't have treatments now. Many of these areas, there is nothing. So patients are waiting. And so it's so crucial, as it is across the Massachusetts ecosystem, that these trials, the research is able to continue in a way that's still safe for patients. And so we've been following closely the FDA guidance around this to try to ensure that we can continue to maintain progress, because this is another, patients are waiting. We cannot wait just to simply slow down for the pandemic, despite these unique circumstances. And to echo on Bob's point, the rest of our organization, we've had to reinvent how we operate. And while we may have been moving forward with a whole host of different operating models for how we engage with our stakeholders and engage with different clinicians and patients, this has forced us to take those forward even another step. And you see that here in today's session. We have a conference and a congress that we're trying to, all our teams are trying to find new ways that we can engage through those forums and those meetings. In 2 weeks, we were looking forward to a very important symposium on Alzheimer's at an international conference to talk about the economics and some of the importance of incentivizing and rewarding breakthroughs in areas that don't have good treatments. And of course, that's transitioned now to a virtual session, but we're still moving forward because it's so important that the progress continues. And I have to say, some of these things aren't bad. As Bob mentioned, I know Bob can draw a crowd in any room and fill it, but I was at a conference a month ago that was supposed to be in Philadelphia. We changed it to a virtual session. There likely would have been 200 or 300 people there. Instead, we had 1,500 people watching online. So that's small numbers for Bob, but for many of us, that's a very effective turnout in a way that we can engage and reach people in a way that just wasn't possible at the same level before.
Hey, and if I could just add to that, Chris, and why I think that's such a good thing, and we talked about it earlier in the week, our industry is all about diversity and inclusion, and how do we get more people engaged? I can think of times where I've gone to event year after year where you're talking to the same people. A lot of it's C-level people that go to some of these more costly conferences and events. Since we've gone virtual like this, to see the people that are able to participate in the conversation and that are brought to the table, it's more inclusive. So I think, Chris, moving forward, to be able to include more people and bring the discussion to a broader audience is only going to make us more successful as an industry and help us help more patients.
That, gentlemen, great discussion. I think I want to just ask the last question and just focus in on your leadership. I think I am, just want to focus on the fact that I am so very proud to work for a company like Biogen. I think what it showed is that amidst difficult times, that Biogen was able to not only move swiftly, but operate in a manner that put our community and our employees at first and foremost. And so I think our team has known that we are functioning with employee and community first. We also have sort of been able to your point, gentlemen, emerge and think about this time differently. And it's challenged us to be innovative as individuals and leaders. So as I look to each of you, if you could just sort of give me comments about what you've learned, not only about the organizations you work for, but just yourselves as leaders. And then have you been able to think through what we could do differently as we begin the re-entry process and to emerge from this? Let's start with you, Bob.
Well, I love this question because right now I could not be more proud of the industry that I work for and that I work with. And, you know, to have so many companies like Biogen, Stephanie, and your team, and Chris, your teams collectively at Biogen, we have so much to be proud of. And, you know, I never ever thought over the last few years, I was becoming discouraged because people didn't realize the value that our industry and that the amazing women and men that go to work every day bring to the lives of patients, that they bring to humankind, and that the value they bring to the healthcare system by keeping people well and healthy and keeping them out of the hospital, which gets very expensive. So now you fast forward to today, and as we sit here, the most important thing to the world's economy is a vaccine and a therapy and then ultimately a vaccine to get us out of this problem. And to know that people actually understand what it feels like to be a patient that's experiencing an unmet medical need, because everybody walking on the globe right now is facing an unmet medical need. We need to win this battle against COVID-19. And everybody understands what that feels like. Now, to see that people actually appreciate this industry again is very refreshing. More refreshing is to see this industry pull together and put, you know, our best leg forward, right? We talked about what we're doing from a philanthropic standpoint. We talked about the fact that we're donating much needed PPE because we care about and we love healthcare workers that are in the front line saving patient lives. Now we see how all these companies are working together collectively. They don't care who invents the vaccine. They're all hoping that their competitor comes to it first, and then everybody will work together to manufacture this vaccine. It's going to take all the manufacturing capability that we have in the world to manufacture billions of doses that it will take to vaccinate the world. So if you hear anyone out there that's saying that the pharma industry is doing this to make money, or any of these misguided, people or politicians that think we're doing this for the wrong reasons, tell them they're wrong. I'm going to tell them they're wrong. You tell them they're wrong. Because right now, this is the industry that's going to get our economy back, and we should be proud of it. Not anybody. They're not doing it for money. They're doing it because it needs to be done. I could go on forever, but I'm not gonna. But I just got excited there, guys. So Chris,
Yes.
let's go back to you. I mean, it's so important. We still have politicians that are out there saying, oh, this is all so the pharma industry can make money. Show me who's going to make money off of vaccine. Antibiotics and vaccine models are already broken, guys. That's why we're in this situation. So after this, we're going to have to fix it.
Absolutely. Chris?
Thanks, Bob. Yeah, no, I mean, I'll echo some of the same ones. There's some really important learnings coming from this entire experience. And, you know, for me, one of the ones I take away right away is the value of preparedness and how difficult, going to some of your points, Bob, how difficult these foundational investments earlier on, how important they are before the crisis emerges. If only we had done this 2 years ago, if only we had done this 3 years ago, if only we'd done this 18 months ago. And there's so many conditions and illnesses just like that companies in Cambridge like Biogen are working on, where we're trying so hard, and yet we see diagnosis and all sorts of other infrastructure buildup that will be required for a treatment to have the most benefit for patients. Those go neglected until the full crisis emerges. So to me, the value of preparedness, this needs to remind us all how important the incentives and investment around those incentives are to create the ecosystem that we all operate and enjoy, and that has produced so much good benefit for society over the last years. The second is partnership and trust. If there's nothing that's become clear, as Bob alluded to, the ability that we have as a community, as an ecosystem to arise to a challenge is inspiring. It's absolutely made me so proud to be part of this response, and to see it happening all around us. These partnerships speak to this interconnectedness and the importance that our industry has had historically, and the need that we have for a powerful industry to respond to healthcare needs in the future. This is a shared responsibility that we all have. And so we will get through this. We will emerge from this. A lot of things will return. but some things have changed forever. And I think that's a really good thing, as we've described. And those changes are going to bring about new innovative ways, new innovative ideas to solve some of the most difficult and challenging problems that we face. And that gives me a lot of hope for what comes next and what's in the future.
Great. Well, thank you, gentlemen. We're coming to the Q&A session. Laura, should I turn it over to you for the Q&A?
That would be great.
Great.
It so happens we have about time for 2 questions, and we have 1 question that is focused on Chris and 1 that's focused on Bob. So it's perfect. I'm going to start with Chris. Biopharm manufacturers rely on the global supply chain to ensure patients have access to medicine. Geographic diversity helps provide stability and avoid potential shortages and disruptions. What are your thoughts on attempts to change the biopharm supply chain, especially as it relates to COVID-19 R&D?
Yep. So clearly this has been a big topic across every industry, not just ours. And I think for all of us, it gives a moment to take some learnings from this experience, because there's nothing more important to continuity of supply for our patients. If we aren't able to maintain that, patients can't access the medicines, and no matter what we do in a local geography or a country to successfully get them to the right place so they can receive a life altering or breakthrough treatment, if we don't have the supply there, it changes that. And I think this recent pandemic certainly will have every company reflecting on how do we ensure. At Biogen, we're very proud of our ability over the last weeks to maintain and ensure that that continuity is there. And we're continuing to take a lot of steps to be sure that that continues. But I think for every company, this will reflect on, okay, how do we ensure and mitigate and prepare for the next crisis or the next situation? It's going to change how we think about it. Similarly, for clinical trials, we're all thinking differently now on telemedicine, telehealth, remote visits, remote instruments and outcomes measures that could be done. And to me, this is going to be an entire change for how we think about preparations around trials, research, so that we can maintain and continue progress on these areas, even in situations when we have crises like this emerge.
Thanks for that, Chris. Bob, given the MassBio partnership with numerous companies across the Commonwealth, what gaps do you see that are not being met that we can consider addressing as members of this biopharm community?
That's a great question. And I mean, let's answer it specific to COVID-19, okay? Part of our job at MassBio is to bring the community together, okay? In COVID-19, we have over 70 companies in Massachusetts right now that are working on either diagnostics, therapies, or vaccines. That is amazing. What can we do to help, and what gaps are happening out there? When you look at vaccine development, and some of you folks may have heard about Project Reset, which is restarting our economy safely through employee training and testing. Phase 3 of Project Reset is how can we, as a cluster that has world-class academic medical centers, a critical mass of life science employees, how can we try to pull together all of these amazing companies that are doing vaccine research and development so that we can assist them with the clinical trial piece of getting human beings to participate in the clinical trials? That is very challenging. Our industry is used to going at that alone. Companies will be doing their own trials here and there for their product with their cohort of patients, etc. Is there a way? And this is what we're working on right now. I'm not saying that there's a solution that we can snap our fingers, it'll be done. But what we're trying to do is pull together the clinical trial aspect, working with these world-class academic medical centers, and then using a platform approach so that you can have multiple products on the same platform, utilizing our distribution network, for lack of better terms, to get the patients into the trial. This is something we're going to need to do out in the field, right? You can't have people coming in and doing this and that. How can we operationalize it? I see that as a huge void. I see it as an opportunity for Massachusetts. And I also see it as a way of doing things bigger, better, faster after this is all done, okay? So probably requires a little more time to answer that, but that's the gap that we want to fill.
Thanks, Bob. We have reached 10:30. That's the end of our time. I want to invite everybody to join me next week. Clement Lewis from Sanofi is going to be here to talk about the vaccines they're working on for COVID, which is exactly what we're talking about right now. I hope everybody has a great weekend. Call your mom. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there.
Yeah, happy Mother's Day.
We'll see you all
Thanks,
soon.
Laura. Thanks,
Thank
Stephanie.
you, Chris. Thank you,
Thanks, Chris.
Stephanie.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Stay safe,
Absolutely.
Stay healthy.
Happy Mother's Day, all.